Welcome one, welcome all. We have a fun Monday Night Football game today, and I'm joined by, as always, by AP. AP, yesterday might have been some of the worst football I think we've ever seen on an NFL Sunday. Not just fantasy-wise or anything like that, but just as pure watching. None of the 4 o'clock games were really good at all. Actually, they were all kind of terrible. The Titans didn't do it the Chargers any favors by getting blown out there. And then, obviously, with the Cowboys got blown out. The Cardinals blew out the Jets as well. And then the 1 o'clock games were honestly terrible as well, AP. Like, the NFL right now, it isn't fun to watch. You look at the Sunday Night Football game yesterday, too. We had 7 interceptions in it. Hopefully, tonight is different. How are you doing, AP?
Yeah, doing really well. I bubbled a lot of my contests yesterday. I liked the portfolio of builds that I had. I thought I had a great approach to the slate. I was over on Bijan Robinson, which obviously was a key component to doing well and to making money. I probably didn't have enough Patriots defense, which always comes down to defense, it seems like, which is very frustrating. But yeah, I mean, it was we were kind of on point. The common theme I heard and I agreed with, it was a floor slate. You know, one thing I thought of, and hindsight's always 20/20, but every single week, if you just made a rule that you're either going to play Saquon Barkley or Jalen Hurts, I'm telling you, man, I don't think there's a week where you wouldn't have done very well at those at either one of those positions. And it's like an either or type of thing. Jalen Hurts smashed yesterday. It was not a Saquon day. Go and look at the Saquon days, though. When he goes off, he goes off. And so that's an interesting correlation because I kept seeing like, I'm trying to think of who I didn't trust any of the projected chalk or the projected good quarterbacks. I liked Purdy, but like the Sam Darnolds of the world, et cetera. That was like one piece I was right on. And I went Allen over Hurts, and I'm like, just kicking myself because I'm like, just get up to Hurts or Barkley, put one or the other in your lineup, and you're going to be fine. And it's like a print fest every single week with that team and using that strategy. So I'm with you, though. I thought last night's game was good in the first half. The interceptions is what it is. I thought it was wild that 5 interceptions, they still won, almost covered. I mean, what a hero if that would have happened. But yeah, I thought the first half was entertaining, and the Lions defense showed up in the second half. I'm confident tonight's game will be fun, and we have some clear target trees, which I like in DFS.
Yeah, very, very clear target trees between the Dolphins and the Rams, of course. AP, I did 150 lineups using the Run for Your Sports projections, and we're doing our base build. If you're not familiar with the base build, it was basically us just running we ran 2,000 teams, taking the top 150 and just seeing where the field is going to land in terms of just raw points, raw projections, right? Well, what's been the common theme the last 2 weeks? It's been cheap captain, right? Like it always pops up in the base build, and it's no different today. Look, we don't even get a guy who's above 4K until we get to Jonnu Smith down here, which is just shocking to me because look, you go to our flex here and stuff, we got guys projected, 7, 8 guys projected between 17 and 21. So it is very surprising to me. It seems like just raw points wise, you want to get some of these studs and then taking a chance on these captains. I don't think we're going to be doing that today, AP. I do think a stud captain, especially with the upside of these guys, is going to be imperative. But what's your take on this base build here so far?
Really good point, and I'm glad you brought that up, the cheap captains in our base builds kind of being a theme. And I saw it yesterday when I ran my initial builds for the Sunday night slate. And Amon-Ra St. Brown ended up being the captain optimal that you wanted. And it's not like he had a smash type game. I think it was, he had like 5 or 6 catches, 60-some yards, and a touchdown, right?
Something I thought it was going to be Mechie for a long time, but literally none of the quarterbacks did enough. And then Mixon, you could even argue he didn't really do enough to even warrant a captain consideration. He had 25 carries for 46 yards.
Take away the 5 interceptions, and Jared Goff probably would have been relevant in the flex. Not captain, but in the flex. I mean, those minus 5 points there was pretty significant.
Yeah, it was very interesting to me when you looked at it. Mechie, I thought was nailed on to be in the winner, after halftime. Okay, cool. Yeah. Lions going to lock in. And they did end up locking in, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't through the fashion that you thought they would. And honestly, I thought David Montgomery, I'm like, oh man, his script is cooked. And then you just see he ends up in the winner and stuff. So It's very interesting because, look, even a guy like Mechie performing extremely well last night, it does take some other pieces to get there, even in the captain. And Amon-Ra St. Brown kind of lets you avoid that. It lets you get some of those cheapies as well, just in the flex. But here is the flex ownership. You have Kyron Williams, Stafford, A-Chain, Puka. The guy who kind of gets squeezed here is no surprise, Jalen Waddle. What are your just kind of blanket overview when it comes to these type of lineups? Because, look, when we got this top lineup here with Davis Allen, right? You can't argue with the other 5 plays that are in it, but you can argue against Davis Allen captain, right? Same thing with Corum. There's a reason why these builds are popping, because look at the floor of like these 5 guys. And if you just cover up the top and look at the bottom, it's fine. But I don't know.
I've like a few macro level thoughts just when you look at these 2 teams and how they're constructed. I mentioned we have a somewhat clear target tree, especially on the Rams side. We know it's Kyron Williams. We know it's Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp. Like those are the focal points. Yeah, Parkinson and DeMarcus, they'll get a few, but the target tree is very, very defined. And similar on the Dolphins side with A-Chain and Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Jonnu Smith, I would add in there as well. This, with both teams loving to run the ball and having very good, obviously run games, and especially in the red zone. I mean, it feels like a slate where the volume as far as targets and points that go along with targets to your receivers, it could be one of those slates where we potentially don't see a quarterback in the winner, and it's all skill position players. So that's kind of in the back of my mind. I know we saw it last night, and I'm not trying to use the recency bias to that degree. And I'm not saying we're going to fade quarterbacks. I'm just saying when you look at your portfolio of builds, it's something to consider giving the target trees and the style of play that we have on both sides.
Yeah, it's very interesting points there. And you did a good job bringing up Jonnu Smith, who has honestly dominated some of these games for the Dolphins in just in random fashion. So I know they had good plans for him coming into the season, but we didn't see that right at the start. I think it took until the Bills game on a Thursday night to kind of show what he can do. But then over the last 3-4 weeks, he's had 5 catches, 4 catches, 7 catches, 5 catches. We'll get into all that a little bit later, but really, he's been outperforming Jalen Waddle to a degree. So we'll go ahead and dive into position by position here, AP. I know that when we looked at this slate, just overall, it is one of those where I'm very curious to see what these sims are going to do. So let's go ahead and just add in our sims. And so we can also upload entries. We're just going to do it this way. So it's easier for now. I'm going to add in a single entry. So we had a good question yesterday on the Sunday Night Football show with Kurt and I, and it was the top single entry captain. And a lot of it was really revolving around Jameson Williams popping a lot. And he had a lot of targets, it felt, but he just didn't quite end up getting there. But I'm wondering who is going to be that Jameson Williams in terms of popping in these sims later on. Again, if you're new to Saber, don't really know how to use it, you can rename your tabs too. So we're just going to do base build. And then we can also rename this one to our script, right?
I mean,
yes.
Yeah, price-wise, like all I could think of is like a Jalen Waddle potentially.
Yeah. And he's what's his price? So
and I mean, Tyreek Hill, obviously his status is in question with the wrist issue.
Yep.
Do you think he plays or not?
So great point. Tyreek Hill is a game time decision. He was out of practice, and I think he was a limited participant on Saturday. Is that what it was?
Yes.
I don't know what to do with the news in that situation. I do think that we look at Tyreek as a contingency plan. I think it would be more fun if we built without him, AP. But the problem is his ownership's involved in the sim, so we have no choice but to build with him. But it's one of those things where 90 minutes before lock, Saber's going to have everything updated, and it's going to be the absolute nuts to kind of chew through. And I think, whenever a star player is out, the ROI on a slate always increases because I think the field is a little bit hesitant to react, and could be the case tonight. And in a sense, if Tyreek Hill missed, that would be Jalen Waddle season all the way at 6,600.
I mean, for what it's worth, there's video on Twitter. Just search Tyreek Hill. He's on the team playing, and he's saying it's about to go down. So who knows? Maybe he wakes up angry and yeah. I mean, if it's up to him, and what did the coach say? If his body allows him to go, if it's like up to him, then I bet he would play. It's just what do we do if he plays and He's somewhat limited. I mean, it's a wrist injury. It's not like it's preventing him from to run routes and things like that. Is he just a ghost out there? Is he a distraction? Is it a Waddle game off of that? Like, how do we play it in terms of DFS? And this is an early show. Like, we're working on limited information at the moment. So,
yeah, I can't wait to kind of see. If he's saying it's about to go down, I'm going to take his word for it. It's about to go down. He's going to play. Oh, let's just throw it in there to help play. And if not, we'll adjust.
If Tua's still playing after the million concussions he's had, I mean, Tyreek Hill can give it a go.
A wrist injury, yeah. All right. So first thing first, quarterback pricing, 9,200, 8,600. Super cheap for quarterbacks. This is about 1K off the mark that I think that we're usually accustomed to seeing. This is what we saw early on in the season. The quarterbacks were very, very cheap. Both these guys aren't much of runners. Tua, don't expect more than a couple of scrambles at best tonight. I would be shocked if he even had one. But you look at the projections here. They're very healthy projections. And I think they popped up in the base build at an extremely high clip. So if you looked at exposure-wise, just in the flex, I think they were hitting, 76% each almost. I guess Tua was a little bit less, 64%. Both these guys here are just great plays. I mean, there's nothing else you can really say about it. Both these defenses are not incredible by any means. It's all about what projection do we want to give them AP. Who do you want ahead of the other? For me, I think I'd rather have Stafford just slightly ahead of Tua, but that's about it.
It's really close. Both quarterbacks have a floor. Both have a ceiling. It's one of those. They don't run. Like you said, they get there. Obviously, that they have talented weapons, with them. I do like, let's just say Tyreek is good to go. Tua versus zone scheme that they're going to see. He's done very, very well against that in the past. So, like, my preference would be Tua over Stafford, just because I do think you can run a little bit on the Dolphins. And Kyren Williams, it's been a few games since we've seen him have kind of, one of those 2-touchdown, 3-touchdown type of games that can be really tilting to Matthew Stafford backers. And that's what I'm saying. Like, would I be surprised if Kyren Williams, again, I'm just throwing this out there, I'm not saying this is going to happen. If Kyren Williams had a 3 rushing touchdown day and Matthew Stafford was like 195 yards, but Puka Nacua was also on the winner because he had 137 yards off 9 catches, no touchdowns. I mean, that's in the realm of outcomes. So I like Tua slightly ahead of Matthew Stafford. Hopefully Tyreek Hill plays, but I do think the zone scheme that he's going to see, I mean, that's really benefited Tua in the past.
Yeah, it's interesting too. And shout out Chris Jones. If you had Valdez-Scantling yesterday, man, that's a great play there. Good morning, Andy. Good morning, John.
I thought about that play for like 3 seconds, and I'm like, nah, I'm not playing MVS.
You look so good too. Like, just on those couple of deep routes, you're like, oh my god, it's crazy. And then we have Snyder in here too. Snyder was on the Saints yesterday. I got to give him a hat tip to that. He was on the Saints plus 3.5 there, so that was a good pick. But yeah, I'm with you. This was an interesting one. Stafford with all his weapons healthy kind of averages around 20 points. That's good to know.
That's a really good point.
I think let's go ahead and just do this. We'll have to just slightly ahead. Price-wise, kind of very similar. 600 off, but he's 0.25 points off. I like these numbers here. We're going to get a lot of the quarterbacks. And, it's tough to fade them because, look, it's 9,200, it's 8,600. Like, it is just very tough to avoid them, but I'm curious to see what the Sims do. And we'll go on to running backs here. Kyren Williams, A-Chain. I mean, these are 2 of your top backs, really, in just DFS in general. When you look at Mostert, when you look at Corum, those are 2 guys where, I mean, Mostert, he's had ball security issues like this season. I think that's cost him quite a few carries. And I think this kind of allowed A-Chain to kind of take over this backfield. But you look at his recent games. This is Mostert's recent games. 10 carries, 2 catches, 9 carries, 1 catch, 11 carries, 19 carries, 2 catches. So he missed some time there with an early injury in the season. I'm having a tough time with Mostert because there has been times where he's been the clear goal line back, and we saw that last year. 2 weeks ago, he had 2 touchdowns against the Arizona Cardinals. It becomes an interesting point because he is 7,400. He will be below 10% owned. Is that enough of a case to even play him tonight, AP, or is it just these top 2 dogs move on?
So a few things on the running backs. Joe Mixon, I thought like the projection on him was aggressive to begin with. And I liked Joe Mixon yesterday. He was in my core, not captain, but he was in the flex in my core. And when I first ran it, and I had a healthy projection on him, I got none in Saber.
Yep.
I had to manually bump him up using the min exposure. And a couple things. One, the ownership on him always blows my mind. And since I was doing that using SaberSim, I thought there's no way he's going to be like that high owned in these contests. But he was. I was like blown away even at that price point. And he 17 points, and he was still in the optimal with those 17 points, which I think he got all in the first half. He did nothing. It was
the first two drives. He had what, the touchdown run that he had 5 carries, 2 yards and a touchdown. Then the very next drive, he gets a catch for 36 yards. It was tilting because I was very much off Mixon.
From a pure projection standpoint, we seem very bullish right now on the running backs with what we're looking at right now, but I agree with it. Like, I love how they're using Achane. He's getting 20 touches, 16 touches, and look at it, like 2 weeks ago, 97, 3 yards shy of the 100-yard bonus, along with 8 targets. I love how they're using them, and this goes back to the target tree that we talked about. We know what the Dolphins want to do right now. Achane's going to be a big part of that. I want to be bullish on him. I also want to be, pretty bullish on Kyren Williams as well. Like, I think Stafford having his weapons back, people are looking at it and they're going to be, all right, let's, we want Puka Nacua, we want Cooper Kupp, but it frees things up more for Kyren Williams too. And if he's going to be a piece that goes a little bit overlooked on this slate, I have a ton of interest. So I like both running backs tonight. I think I'm fine with Kyren Williams where he's projected at. I would want to bump up Achane just a little bit. On the surface, though, I'll be honest, like, these projections feel very healthy. But if we bump them down, I don't think we're going to get much. I think we get Achane, but I don't think we're going to get much Kyren Williams at his $10,800 price tag.
Yeah, it's a good point. And just so it's on the record too, like, this Rams defense is not as good as the Dolphins defense. That's not to say that the offense won't overcome that, but it is one of those things where, like, Achane is a guy that, look, this is an aggressive projection, AP. I think it's a little too aggressive, but even at even if I bump him down to a projection, which I thought he'd be in the 19s, you're still going to get a lot of him. He's still projected above the quarterbacks here, and you know what he can do in the passing game too. It's one of the best aspects of Achane's ability is
Let's do that. So we're bumping him down from a projection standpoint. It's not because we don't like him. We like him. We definitely want exposure to him. No, I think you keep Kyren Williams where he was at.
Okay.
Because it's the price tag. I think the same issue is going to happen that I had with Joe Mixon last night. And I think I ran like 6 or 7 things. I'm sitting there, it's Sunday, usually kind of drained on Sunday. And I'm like, what's going on here? I'm like, if I just full fade Joe Mixon here, I could get absolutely scooped on the slate, which is not what I wanted at all yesterday. So I'm curious to see where he lands, though. At that projection, it's a bullish projection, but we definitely want to get him into our lineups.
Yep, 100%. I'm with you there. We'll keep Kyren where he's at. I mean, the thing with Achane, the involvement in the passing game is the best, probably in the AFC. I mean, 6 catches over his last 2. With Tua to start the season, he had 7 catches and 7 catches as well. Tua likes running game. Achane loves catching the ball. It is kind of very curious, and that's why when Snyder's saying ladder him, I think this is interesting. I could ladder some Achane.
Josh D, I'm a market guy, former money manager. I know what I should try to do is work these other words into my vocab throughout the show. Confident, optimistic. I like that.
All right, so I'm just gonna bump. All right, I'm just going to do this for AJ. He's still a little bit below his projection. I'm going to get just slightly up because I want to see what a projection that kind of goes upwards does in the Sims for Mostert. Because what if he did get like a 2-touchdown game? Because Lee, you're right. Is 1 touchdown enough to pay it off? No, I don't think it is. Not at 7,400, not above Waddle and stuff. But there is capability of 2 touchdowns. This I saw a couple weeks ago. AP, this is a good question. Do you think it goes over this total here? We have a total tonight. I can get you the exact number too. I don't know if it's 48.5.
If Tyreek Hill's good to go, I do think we see points.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I mean, 2.5
after this week, though. How could you be confident in betting overs outside of the Ravens game? And imagine, I was talking to Big T earlier. Imagine if that Cincinnati Ravens game would have been on the main slate. Oh, it would have been nice.
Oh my God!
I know it would have been owned, but like I just know how I play. I would have been way overweight on it. So unfortunate
it
that
was
it
funny
was.
too. I was going through like best ball this last night, and I'm like, man, this week sucked for best ball. And then you realize, no, there was a Thursday night game that had 200 points if you had those guys in your lineup, right? Like it was just crazy. It's like every game sucked except for that Bengals Ravens game, and that one on a main slate would have been really fun. AP, thoughts on these little like these small rolls, big hearts guys, right? Blake Corum, 2.48. I think that's a little too high. I think he has 5 carries combined the last 2 games. Kyron Williams, clear bell cow. I mean, there's paths to where what if Kyron gets banged up? I think Corum would be the guy. Jalen Wright, same way. And then Ingold, not really on him a lot. Do you think these are good projections? Well, we lost Ingold.
Yeah, very bearish on the scrub second, third string running backs. I do got to give a shout out to our guy, Kay Fallon, for coring Chris Rodriguez Jr., third string running back for the Commanders, who had 3 carries, I think, 1 touchdown, maybe like 12% snap share, and outscored Saquon Barkley. I mean, what an absolute call from K-Fowl. I don't know if he could win with that, but it was still impressive that Chris Rodriguez got in the box.
Did he get in the box?
Yeah, because he had 3. He had like 3 rushes.
Oh wow!
And one of them was a touchdown, goal line opportunity.
So all right, let's move on to wide receivers here. We already talked about Tyreek and Waddle's situation. We both think Tyreek, or at least I think Tyreek's going to play. I mean, I think you're leaning with me there too. Puka and Cooper Kupp is a debate that is as old as time, right? As old as 2023 in August or September. I don't really know what to do with these two. AP, can you play both? Do you want to play both on this slate? If you're a fan,
how about this?
If I can get it, yes.
I thought about this too, and again, I'm not a huge proponent of making rules in Showdown builds. I do think that you can get away with it in 20 max formats. I typically play 20 to 35 lineups, so it kind of fits my style. Here's what I would do. We talked about the defined target tree in Kyron Williams, Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp. What about a rule that says only 2 of the 3 max? So we're not necessarily limiting like a Puka and Cooper Kupp lineup together, but we are saying Kyron, Puka, and Cooper Kupp in those builds cannot all be played together. That's one thing that I would consider, and you could do the same thing on the Dolphins side with Achane, Tyreek Hill, and Jalen Waddle. It's something that I was kind of considering. I don't know if we need to go there for this exercise today, but that's definitely something I'm going to be looking at. Unless you want to create that group rule.
So remember, I'm going to show people how to make that real quick using Saber. You click the rules button here. You can go to use no more than 2. And what we would do is we would click, I got to make sure that I can add these players, edit players. There it is. Puka, Kupp, and then all of a sudden you go to running back here, and we're going to add in Kyron Williams. Do the same thing in the captain as well. And voila, we'll hit save group at the top. And as you can see, save rule, and we would have a maximum 2 of those 3 skill players there for the Rams. I think that's fine to do. I mean, we don't have to do it AP for this one, but just to show people how to do it.
Let's do it. I want to see what the
my bad.
I mean, we don't have to, I guess.
Yeah,
I thought you had it right there.
Yeah, I accidentally clicked away from it. But yeah, let's go over these wide receivers real quick.
And here's how you could use. Let's just say you're bullish on all 3, but you don't know what combination that you want, but you're very confident that, hey, there's a good chance that it might be 2 of the 3, but not all 3. Then you can get overweight, or you can get very confident to use Josh T's alternate word versus bullish on their projection, and you can over project them, knowing that you're not going to get all 3 into your lineup, and it's going to be some combination of 2 of the 3. So again, I think it's more of like a 20 max type of strategy, because if you run 150 lineups, you don't really want to, like, you would want that, to have that in the range of outcomes of having all 3. Like, that's a game script that you don't necessarily want to eliminate from your pool.
100%. Very much so. Let's go ahead and talk about these wide receivers here. So we know the top 2 dogs for each team: Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, Cooper Kupp, and Puka Nacua. Projection-wise, I want to know how you rank them, and then we will dive into Demarcus Robinson, who was the benefit of Puka Nacua getting ejected last week in the first half, and then Demarcus Robinson absolutely went nuclear in that second half. He's also pretty expensive at 5,600. Then also you got to look at what the Dolphins' plans are, because Odell Beckham Jr. 3 targets last week, 3 for 15 is what he went, 3 catches, 15 yards. He actually outproduced Jalen Waddle, who went 2 catches, -4 yards, because he had a negative 16-yard catch in that mix. I think it was because of the pitchy woo-woo stuff. But he also had a touchdown. The Dolphins side to me is a little bit of a blur outside of Tyreek here, AP. I really don't know what to do with Miami.
So here's what we have to keep in mind with Tyreek Hill is, one, Buffalo, they run a similar scheme on him as Kansas City does, where they bracket him, they take him out of the game. It's what they do. So keep that in mind. Looking at box score lurkers are going to look at that and they're going to be like, oh my gosh, like this dude is horrendous. Keep in mind, Tua was not the quarterback in the overwhelming majority of those games. Yeah. He had a really good first half against Arizona, 9 targets, and then just kind of went away in that game. And I think it was Achane who went off. So all I'm saying is, I know there's risk concerns. There's a lot of unknowns right now. But if Tyreek Hill is good to go, this is going to be one of the best matchups for him to like completely go off in with what the Rams do defensively. So, and when you look at the projection, what was his projection without us changing it? I mean, we weren't going to get any of them.
13 or whatever like that. We were not going to get a single bit of him. And I thought he's the best wide receiver, arguably.
Look at his ownership.
Yeah.
20%. Do you think Tyreek Hill, again, I think he's going to be underweight relative to historically where we would normally see him. I don't know. I kind of want to assume that he's going to play, assume the risk is going to be fine, assume the market's going to be down on him looking at those box scores, and use this from a matchup standpoint. It's one of the best that he'll see all year. Tua back helps. People are looking at last week. Well, even with Tua back, he sucked. That's a 100% function of what the Bills do. It's the same thing that Kansas City does. They take him out of the game. So I like being over on Tyreek Hill here.
Yeah, 100%. And Lee, I think it's just because of injury. I know that kind of like dipping your toe in the water, we don't always dive in. And so I do think I agree with that sentiment. But you also look at his props. His props are way down from usual. Like he has 70 yards as -135 on DraftKings Sportsbooks. That's not usually the case. I do think a base probably around 15 and a half with his current props right now. But I'm treating it, if he's healthy, if he's playing in that game, you treat him like he's a full go. You let the field go underweight on him. You let him be lower owned than Jalen Waddle, Puka, and Cooper Kupp, and you capitalize on that. He is the highest upside guy in this game, in this slate. You don't fade that.
Let's just say it was like if it was a hamstring issue, I would have way more concerns. Like that have to take you out of a game completely. It's all about getting Tyreek Hill in space, which against this zone scheme we should see, and letting him do his thing, which we haven't seen in a while, which is why the field and the market is under on him. So I love getting aggressive with Tyreek Hill here. Great price tag too on him. Like Tyreek Hill, 10,000. Kyron Williams was 800 more than him. That's absurd.
Yeah, very much so. The rest of these guys here, I really want your take on Waddle. I bumped them up just slightly because that 11.81 number is also kind of low. Look, this Rams defense, especially with Tua back in the mix for this Dolphins offense, right? Like it's very tough to judge the Dolphins outside of the last 2 weeks. And I know Waddle has not been great in those weeks. However, this is a Rams defense that is bad against the run, and they are really bad against the pass. I think they are 24th in the league against the pass, allowing 225 yards a game, which isn't great. I don't know. I want to be bullish on this Dolphins passing game. Achane you can obviously throw into this mix as well because he's their second leading receiver over recent weeks. It becomes a little bit troublesome for me, AP, because I want to buy in on these guys. I want to buy in on Jalen Waddle, 6.6K. But I also have to remember his recent production, even with Tua being back for a few of these weeks, it's just not great. 2 catches, -4 yards. 2 catches, basically like 16 yards, right? That with a touchdown. I don't want to include that last play where he lost 20 yards on the catch. Arizona Cardinals, he had 4 catches, 45 yards. The game before that, this one was with the back quarterback. It was 1 catch, 11 yards. His production this season has waned off completely. I don't know what to do with Waddle. What do you think?
Yeah, it's a good question. It is kind of baffling that he hasn't been. Now, again, 2-game sample with Tua back. like the Buffalo game, those games are just different. These divisional rivalries, like it's a different game than what we're going to see tonight. So it kind of goes back to what Lee Price was saying in chat. How do we feel about overs? The more we talk about this after the week that we had of disastrous football, I do kind of like the over tonight. And if we build a script using that in mind, we have to really like these Dolphins skill position players. Even they're just too cheap. They are, like Tyreek Hill, too cheap. Jalen Waddle, too. I know we made the Rams rule, or we're considering the Rams rule. Even in 20 max formats, I don't think I would do that on the Dolphins side, because if the Dolphins score 28 points, you could see Jalen Waddle pay off his tag, Tyreek Hill pay off his tag, and Achane pay off his tag. They're just too cheap relative to the upside that they collectively have. So yeah, I like bumping them up. Does Waddle concern me? Yes, he does. He's cheap. Could he absolutely punish me if we fade him? Yes, he definitely could. Whereas it does seem like it's a Cup or Puka type thing, not both, where it could be Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, if that makes sense. Like I feel more confident in a combination of Hill Waddle in this matchup specifically against the scheme that the Rams run than a Cup and Waddle combined in a lineup. Mute.
Last week, if you want to look at what the Dolphins doing just in terms of routes ran, Tyreek 28, Waddle 26, Jonnu and Achane 25, and then the next guy was Odell Beckham Jr. with 9. So like you have a very clear 4 of who you want to target from the passing game for the Dolphins here. But yeah, I'm with you. Waddle, too cheap. He has the ability to end you. He is one of the better receivers in this league. I love Waddle. He was a freshman at Bama. You saw the ability that he's got. He's still got that ability to end anyone on a slate, especially at 6,600. I think he will pop the most in captain AP. I think he'll be our highest owned captain with the
I agree. Jonnu Smith is the problem, has been the problem for Jalen Waddle, but defenses see that too, and they adjust. And so it's like we got to be ahead of that adjustment, which if they do adjust, because Jonnu Smith has been a problem, and then it's back to Waddle. So it's kind of that zig and zag type of game. So, right. And again, like we're not fading Jonnu Smith. We'll get to him. I like him too. Maybe that's more of, where we do create that rule, but maybe it's like a 3 max of those 4 players.
Yeah, very much. So this is interesting, AP, because I look at this thing and it's a lot of red, and that's just because the role players I think are being slightly overprojected on the Dolphins side when no one runs more than 9 routes. Especially on the Rams side, too, you had Puka getting ejected, and I think that inflated the projections for these guys just slightly. Do you agree with these projections here? Does anyone need a bump up?
No, I'm good with those.
All right, perfect. Let's move on to tight ends here. We were just
you were I had Puka slightly ahead of Cup.
Oh, you know what? I'm with you. Let's do that.
Especially should be very well rested after getting ejected from that game.
Yeah, that knee should be just fine. There we go. We'll do that. Let's go to tight ends now. Jonnu Smith has been an absolute force. I mean, the Dolphins are utilizing him. McDaniel did say that he wanted to get Jonnu Smith really involved over the last 4 weeks, and he's done just that. 4.4K is not bad. He is going to be a little bit owned, above 20% here, and I think the role is something that is not set in stone. You have to look at it here. He's getting more targets than Waddle. And is that something that's completely sustainable? I think the answer is no. And I'm not saying he's a terrible player or whatever, but I do think if you were to sell on anyone, it would be Jonnu from this Miami offense. Like, if you sold on Jonnu and bought Waddle, I mean, if I told you before the season Waddle's only 2,200 more than Jonnu, you'd be like, oh, give me Waddle all day. I know that we have to see what has actually been performed on the field. But we know what Waddle can do. We've seen Jonnu in this role where they try and get him involved out there in the flat, get the ball in space, because for his size, he is really quick and he can run downhill with the best of them. But 7.7 is going to be fine for me. I think if you wanted to get him to 8, we could. But if we're going to be buying on Waddle, I do think it has to involve a sell somewhere else. And I think that sell would be Jonnu Smith. What do you think?
Yeah, it comes down to Tyreek Hill's status too. Obviously, if Hill's out, more targets to a guy like Jonnu Smith as well. But if Tyreek Hill plays, I'm with you. I think the projection's fine. I don't want to sell too hard. But relative to Waddle, we obviously got pretty aggressive where we bumped up Jalen Waddle, so I think I'm fine. But I definitely want Jonnu Smith in my pool of players, skill position players. And Kobe Parkinson, I talk about a player that I've never gotten right ever. I'll defer to you on him. I'm going to leave him in my pool, but I can't see he's kind of a value filler in the flex. Never captaining him. Feel very confident about that in this system, but I'm going to leave him in the flex as kind of like a value filler type of piece.
So I have a case for you here. Davis Allen, straight up, is better than Colby Parkinson. I do think the field's going to see that too. So last week, right? I like to look at the most recent week. In week 8, Colby Parkinson ran 24 routes, had 2 catches. Davis Allen only ran 4 routes. In week 9, last week, Davis Allen ran 19 routes, 3 targets, 1 catch. Colby Parkinson, 18 routes, 0. So before the season started, there was a heavy rumor that Davis Allen is pushing Colby Parkinson for the tight end 1 role. And this was me in best ball. I've been very much adamant on taking some of these backup tight ends. Like Will Dissly, I have a couple shares for the Chargers because he was pushing Hayden Hurst and he ended up winning that role. Davis Allen is winning that role from Colby Parkinson right now, and I think you can get in on it. We need a 200 guy. We need a 200 guy.
Let's give him like a 2.95.
Let's get him above Colby Parkinson. They ran the same snaps last week, and you know what?
All right, let's give him 3.35 and Colby Parkinson 3.15.
So 3.35, 3.15, right? 3.34. Okay. You know what? Let's go for pi. Happy Veterans Day, by the way. 3.35. So Davis Allen.
33. I like it.
Yeah, 30. Yeah, 3. You know what? Let's do lucky number 3. Davis Allen is someone where I think this is going to be an interesting predicament because I think this is going to flip by lock. I don't think Colby Parkinson comes in at 13%. I don't think Davis Allen comes in at 4%. Davis Allen gives you the keys to unlock the slate. 200. You need a cheap guy. We saw it. He was popping in the captaincy even with a very low projection. Not to say Davis Allen even has to do anything. He just needs a couple catches, and he's going to get there. For 200.
Is there another guy, Hunter Long, also?
Hunter Long. Yeah, that's a good point, too. With Hunter Long, he ran
what was his snaps and routes?
So 7 routes, 1 catch. He outperformed Colby Parkinson.
Oh, okay.
People are seeing Colby Parkinson and being like, oh, he's tight end number 1. Is he, though? Is he? That's the point. I don't know if he's tight end number 1 there anymore. And if it was because of injury or anything like that, let me know. But Davis Allen could have won this role in the preseason, didn't. Colby Parkinson looked good in the first few weeks, but hasn't done anything since. And now Davis Allen is getting his opportunity. So that's my strong take of the slate is that Davis Allen is a guy that we may need. And big fan of him. Colby Parkinson we're selling on. And then anyone else you want to talk about here? I got Hunter Long back in the pool.
I'm fine just making our stand with Davis Allen, but bringing Hunter Long back in the pool I think is fine as well.
Perfect. Julian Hill, I see him involved in many snaps. And we'll do this for Smythe. Kickers and defenses. Defenses here are fine. I mean, they're not overpriced at all, but same thing as we always do. We're kind of indifferent. We let the Sims kind of handle these, right?
Yep. Yeah, I look at the cheaper defense. I'll always have some interest. I don't want to get too crazy, but it's a value piece that I do want to factor in. We saw it, that was the case last night. Was it in the winter, though?
Check. I'm going to check that right now.
It was not in the winter.
Defense almost had to be in the winter.
You would think, but it wasn't. It was Mechie, Fairburn, Laporta, David Montgomery, Joe Mixon, Amon-Ra. No quarterback. No quarterback, 1 kicker.
I am shocked by that.
I am too. I'm very shocked as well.
You couldn't tell me they only had 10
5 picks.
I thought the Texans defense had way more than 10 points.
Did they only have to finish with 10? Okay.
They only had
those
10.
last points. Yeah, the last points did the
5 interceptions was the only thing they scored all slate. That's incredible. But yeah, I'm with you. I think you like that here. We scaled it down just a little bit, kind of like a ladder. But do you want I want Sanders ahead of Cardi. I think that should be noted.
Yeah, I mean, these kickers aren't like last night. I felt very confident in those 2 kickers just because they are absolute beasts. Man, like these kickers are good.
I mentioned it on the show yesterday.
Really good.
AP loves himself some Fairbairn. He loves himself.
He's a machine. He's like an optimal all the time. He's an absolute machine.
We somehow had 2,500 lineups instantly made in the click of a button there. Holy cow, that was quick.
The machine. But he missed that. He missed that long one last night. 58-yarder.
Yeah.
Which is just crazy. It was a bad snap, though. It wasn't on him. It was on the snapper.
Yeah, at least no Debo there to punch the long snapper, right? Let's go to ownership here, AP, and we're going to run the contest sim right now. So right now, let's go to our captains as well. We haven't ran the contest sims just yet. But you can see how different it is from the base build, right? You immediately see basically a massive difference with the studs at the captain now. Let's go ahead. It's finishing up. Who wins tonight, and what's the score?
Man, I came unprepared with my if Tyreek Hill plays, Dolphins are going to win. I'm going to say 28-24. We slightly go over.
I like it. 28-24. I'm going to go slightly against it, 27-24 Rams. I do think that the 24 number is going to be involved a little bit. AP, I should have guessed this. I thought it would be Waddle, but because we bumped Tyreek Hill so much and because his ownership is incredibly low at the moment, Tyreek Hill is going to be our top captain. Obviously, that hinders our ability to get Waddle in the captain when the other receiver is hitting over a third of the time. These are the type of builds that you look at. Wow, am I shocked to see Davis Allen in here? No, I'm not. This is a perfect type of build I'm looking at tonight. And I do think
I'm going to be rooting for Davis Allen all night now.
Oh, dude, Davis Allen's going to be.
What's our flex ownership on him? It has to be high. It has to be ridiculously high.
If he gets 0, like you're still fine, I think, especially in single entry. I think it's the ultimate single entry play.
Here's the thing about the play. Look at all the combination, like all the high upside skill position players that we can jam in at captain on this slate, and then it's a mix and match game with our punt Davis Allen min price 200 being the key.
Wow, we get the look at that.
What? All right, pull up the Tyreek Hill builds. I just want to see what these look like.
So Tyreek Hill is the captain. Obviously, our number 1 right now and our number 2. So this one has Cardi. This is a 4-2.
One quarterback.
That one looks nice. If you didn't want Stafford and you still wanted the upside of the running game and pass game, this one has A-Chain. And this one also had Mostert, which I was kind of like a little bit shocked by. Because 8.75, I didn't pump him up that high. I want to see one where, look, there we go. We got a Puka one right here. But it doesn't have a running back. It's like forcing you to pick between rock and a hard place. You want to fade the running game or the passing game? This is a very typical build that I think you'd see tonight. 1,400 left over, no dupes and 2,500 lineups. I do think that Davis Allen is going to get more steam, and I also think Tyreek Hill captain is going to get more steam. These are the type of builds that I see hitting a lot tonight, and I'm actually very happy with these builds. But yeah, I mean, let's see. Can we get A-Chain involved too? Let me see what A-Chain is involved here, AP.
I'm curious to see if we have any non-QB lineups. Because they are cheap, captain,
right?
Or just in general.
Just in general?
Let's do it. Yeah, just to see what they look like.
So let's go ahead and do no Tua, no Stafford, no Tua, and there you go. They have Devon A-Chain, Kyron, Tyreek Hill, Kupp, Cardi, Allen. This one leaves 300. No quarterbacks. Ownership on this one becomes low because of the fact that you're not playing either 60% owned quarterback, right? 50%, I guess. I would say 55-60 with captain included.
Just doesn't. Yeah, the Rams, they don't feel like I don't have the stats in front of me, but a team that likes to kick field goals. Yeah. Like the Texans kick a ton of field goals, like because they can make them from anywhere.
And DeMeco Ryans loves running it on 2nd and 12. Too.
Yeah,
so he always sets himself up for 3rd and long. Yeah, I mean these are the type of builds.
I don't hate it.
A lot of no quarterback builds here, AP.
Okay, yeah, and I'm not fading quarterbacks, but I don't hate this type of build. You got this running back. Yeah, imagine if the running backs, maybe there's 3 touchdowns between the two, and then you get your targets, your volume on the ground, the receiving yards, a couple field goals, and then punt Davis Allen. Maybe he's the guy that snags the touchdown, and it's like a floor game from your quarterbacks. It's a build that could make sense.
Yeah, very much so. Vincent, For another parlay, this is a game, especially with Tyreek Hill's status up in the air. I'm just gonna wait until like 7 o'clock. I love my same game parlays more than anything in the world right now. I think they're the most fun thing to do. I actually like them more than DFS at the moment, AP, because I feel like these like 20-1 long shots I get, I've always been like a little bit of a sweat. But this is a game that I'm 100% waiting until 7 on because I want to see Tyreek Hill's status quite a bit. Top lineup here, let's check it out. This is the one without quarterbacks here, Andrew. I'll show you the one with just regular wise too. But you see why it's hitting. If you're going to fade both quarterbacks, well, you're most likely going to get both running backs, right? That makes a lot of sense. You get Kyron and A-Chain, you get the wide receiver number ones, then there's just a kicker in there as well. And I think Sanders fits over Cardi. And then you look at the top lineup here. This is Tyreek with Tua, Waddle. You're not getting Kyron or A-Chain, but you can see why these builds are hitting, right? They're very clear paths there. So, AP, I mean, anything else you want to add? Anything else you want to look at before we dip on out of here? I mean, I think we can do the single entry one if you want, just to see what ROI-wise. This is single entry, same thing. I'm going to do a win rate instead. So what I like to do is like what lineup usually wins the most, right? Now it says dupes, so that's why you don't really use this one too much. This is the top win rate in single entry. Cooper Kupp, no Kyron, but it does have A-Chain captain, both Miami wide receivers with Tua, and then Davis Allen, obviously. So it should be noted, we probably might be the highest on Davis Allen. I think a lot of people are going to kind of fall on him as well because why would you click Colby Parkinson when you have a better Colby Parkinson at 200 for 3,200 cheaper? And really, it just unlocks the site. It allows you to get the studs. Why wouldn't you do that in single entry, in my opinion? So, yeah.
I'm going to be doing that a lot.
Yeah.
Nothing to add. There's a lot of new. Obviously, the Tyreek Hill news is very significant. If he plays, he's going to be my most important player.
Yep.
I love the matchup for him, and I love that again. And I'm willing to take that risk. And it's just one of those things. If I'm wrong and he ends up sucking, then yeah, I move on to the next week. But anytime we can get a slight potential leverage advantage, where there's an injury designation or questionable status, I'm usually going to try and take that opportunity.
Lee, give yourself some credit. Not a lot of people ever read those things. I do think the sharper players do read a lot.
He's a sharp guy, man. He's a real sharp guy.
Very much so. I will say this, just because Davis Allen hasn't had a game where he's got like 5 catches, he's still going to go under the radar. And I love this for like, especially the niche sports I play. If someone has a really good point per game average, they always get clicked. It's always the game loggers. And luckily, Davis Allen doesn't really have the exact game log that have people just casuals clicking his name. So once he does well tonight, people will start clicking him, but he hasn't done it yet. And I'm not fearing. I think a lot of people are going to get on him, especially these shows and stuff, because we're one of the first shows that kick off. I do think he ends up being closer to 10, 12% rather than the 3% he's at now.
I also, my last thing is, and I'm not against 5-1s, but I do not think this is a 5-1 slate. Both teams clearly define target trees, and it's in my opinion, a little less variance when you know typically where the ball is going to go. So it does feel like a 2-4, maybe a 3-3 type of night, but 4-2, 3-3.
I'm with you. Who's your most important player of the night before we have
Tyreek Hill if he plays? And Davis Allen, because you convinced me.
So Davis Allen. I'm mad AP. Last show we did, I love Tanner Hudson, man. I was so convinced on Jermaine Burton, but Tanner Hudson ended up being the guy, and I was just kicking myself. And Jermaine Burton wasn't on the slate. He got 5 targets, so I'm not.
Jermaine Burton had the opportunity. He almost got in the end zone. I will never regret that type of.
But I knew Tanner Hudson was involved in every little bit of those checkdowns and stuff, and I was like, man, if I just put Hudson over Burton. For me,
I was pissed. I only had 25 to 30% Chase captain. I was tilted by that. It wasn't. It was overweight, but it wasn't overweight enough. That's just how you got.
Very interesting to see how we do with those Bengals sites, because we get one next week, next Sunday. Chargers, Bengals. Kurt and I will be doing the show then for Sunday Night Football. My most important player of the slate, you did Tyreek. I actually think very similar to you. I wanted to say Tyreek, but since you're saying it, I'm going to go Waddle, because I don't know exactly what I'm going to get from Waddle, but I am going to trust him a lot tonight, and it's just about getting fed, right? Like whoever said that earlier, it's just about him getting the ball. And
I thought you were going to. I was leaving Davis Allen for you, but okay.
Yeah, we can take the cop out, but anyone who's watched the show knows Davis Allen's our guy tonight. It should be a fun one.
I'm all in. All the chips going into the middle.
Right there. Yeah, one fantasy point. That's all we ask. All right. For AP, for I, thank you all for watching. Have a great rest of y'all's day, and hopefully we see you at the chop at the top.